Have you ever looked at your relationship, one that was hurting you, one you could see clearly was wrong, yet you found yourself completely unable to leave? Or the opposite, have you ever pushed away someone genuinely good, someone safe and steady, because something about their stability made you profoundly uncomfortable? Have you spent years searching for approval from people who withheld each bosses, mentors, partners, and wondered why their recognition felt more important than anyone else's? Have you noticed that you keep ending up in the same dynamic, with different faces? This is not a personality flaw. This is not a series of bad choices. This is a pattern. And like all patterns, each has an origin. Carl Jung believed that among all the forces shaping our psychological life, few are as powerful and as invisible as the relationship with our Father. Not just the Father as a person, but the Father as an archetype, as a psychological imprint, as the first encounter with authority, protection, law, and the outside world. In the last video of this series, we explored the golden shadow, the brilliant parts of ourselves we learned to hide. Before that, we explored how we project our unresolved material onto romantic partners. Today, we trace both of those patterns back to one of their deepest roots, the father shadow. What your father gave you, what he withheld, what he modeled, and what he left unspoken, all of which is still operating inside you, right now, shaping every relationship you have with authority, love, and your own sense of worth. The father is the first representative of the collective spirit, the world of tradition, the law, and the wider social order. Let us go. To understand the father shadow, we first need to understand what Jung meant by an archetype. An archetype is not a person. It is a universal psychological pattern, a blueprint encoded in the collective unconscious that every human being carries, regardless of culture, time, or history. The father archetype is one of the most ancient and powerful of all. It represents far more than the biological man who raised you. What the father archetype carries, the father archetype is the psyche's internal representation of structure, authority, protection, law, and initiation into the world. It is the force that says, this is how the world works. This is what is expected of you. This is what it means to stand on your own. In its positive expression, the father archetype is the wise guide, the one who protects while gradually releasing, who disciplines with love, who initiates you into your own strength and teaches you that the world is navigable. In its negative expression, it becomes the tyrant, the one who controls through fear, withholds approval as a weapon, demands performance over presence, or disappears entirely, leaving a void that the child spends decades trying to fill. The personal father versus the archetypal father. It is something crucial that Jung was careful to distinguish. Your relationship with the father archetype is not identical to your relationship with your actual father. Your personal father was a human being flawed, shaped by his own wounds, his own shadow, his own lived life. But the archetypal father is the psychological template your psyche uses to process everything he was, everything he wasn't, everything you needed him to be. This means two things. First, even if your father was absent, abusive, or emotionally unavailable, your psyche is still formed a father archetype built from fragments, from the gap itself, from what was missing. Second, even if your father was genuinely good, there may still be aspects of the father archetype that aren't resolved in you, because no human being can fully embody an archetype. Why this matters for your adult life: the father archetype becomes the internal lens through which you latch to authority, approval, structure, your own sense of being enough. When that lens is clear, you can engage with authority figures without collapsing or rebelling, receive criticism without being destroyed by it, set boundaries without catastrophic guilt, and feel fundamentally worthy of taking up space in the world. When that lens is distorted by a father who was absent, critical, controlling, unpredictable, or simply emotionally unavailable, you carry that distortion into every arena of your adult life. In most of the time, you have no idea it is there. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. The father shadow is not formed in a single dramatic moment. It is formed slowly, quietly, in the accumulation of ordinary days. In the meals where he was physically present but emotionally somewhere else entirely. In the achievements you brought home, searching his face for the recognition that never quite arrived. In the moments you needed protection and he either overwhelmed you with control or disappeared when you needed him most. In the unspoken rules about what kind of person you were supposed to be, what was acceptable, what was too much, what had to be hidden to keep the peace. The 5 father-wound patterns. Through decades of clinical work, Jungian analysts identified several recurring patterns. How the father shadow forms. Let us name them clearly. Pattern 1. The absent father. This is perhaps the most common wound in the modern world. The father who was physically absent through death, divorce, work, or abandonment, or the father who is physically present but emotionally unreachable. The child who grows up with an absent father learns, at the most foundational level, that the people they need most will not stay. In adult life, this manifests as a deep, often unconscious thought of abandonment, choosing unavailable partners because the longing for the absent one never fully resolved, or pushing away available ones because closeness now feels like the precursor to loss. Pattern 2. The critical father. The father whose approval was always conditional, whose praise, when it came at all, came with a but, who turned achievements and their opportunities to raise the bat rather than moments to celebrate. The child of the critical father internalizes that voice completely. Each becomes the inner critic, relentless, exacting, never satisfied. In adult life, this often appears as perfectionism that is not actually about excellence but about finally, someday, being enough. A chase that has no finish line because the original approval never came. Pattern 3. The controlling father. The father who protected through domination, whose love was real but whose expression of each left no room for the child to develop their own will, their own preferences, their own identity. The child of the controlling father faces one of two paths. They either rebel, sometimes self-destructively, against any authority whatsoever, or they collapse into compliance, never developing a reliable sense of their own agency. In adult life, this manifests as profound difficulty with authority figures, chronic ambivalence about commitment, and a deep distrust of any structure, including the internal ones that would actually serve them. Pattern 4. The emotionally unavailable father. The father who was present and even responsible, paid the bills, showed up but who lived behind glass, who could not be reached emotionally, who communicated tasks in transactions rather than presence in feeling. The child of this father learns that emotional intimacy is not safe, not available, or not real. They learn to function, to perform, to manage but not to connect. In adult life, this often produces high-achieving, highly capable people who are profoundly lonely inside their own relationships, who do everything right is to feel unseen. Pattern 5. The idealized or idolized father. This pattern is less discussed but equally powerful. The father who was placed on such a high pedestal either by the child, the mother, or the family system that he became impossible to relate to as a human being, or the father who died early, leaving an idealized image that the child spent their life trying to live up to or live for. The shadow. It is not hatred or resentment, but an impossible standard, an internalized figure is so large that the child never felt free to simply be themselves, separate, insufficient. Pies music breeds these patterns rarely appear in isolation. Most of us carry combinations of several, and what makes them so powerful is precisely their invisibility. They feel not like wounds, but like reality, like simply the way things are, like who we are. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. The father shadow does not move through every person the same way. Each travels along different psychological pathways depending on whether the child is a son or a daughter. In understanding both paths is essential, both for your own self-knowledge and for your compassion toward the people in your life who are carrying this wound alongside you. The father shadow in source for a son. The father is the first mirror of what it means to be a man. The son is not just loved or wounded by his father, he is being given a template, a demonstration of what masculinity looks like, what it costs, what it requires, and what it is allowed to feel. When the father is psychologically healthy, he initiates his son into adult masculinity not through dominance, but through presence. He models how to hold power without cruelty, how to be strong without emotional closure, how to engage with the world without losing oneself. When the father is wounded, absent, or toxic, the son faces a profound problem. He must construct his own identity as a man without an adequate model. He will unconsciously fill that gap. Sometimes he fills it with the negative by becoming the opposite of his father. The son of a controlling man becomes pathologically conflict avoider. The son of an absent man becomes compulsively present to the point of losing himself. This is still the father-s pattern, just inverted. Sometimes he fills it with unconscious repetition, becoming, despite everything, eerily similar to the father he swore he would never be. Because the template, however painful, is the only one he has, The father shadow in souls often appears as difficulty with authority figures, a complicated relationship with their own power, inability to receive mentorship without defensiveness, and a persistent sense of not having been truly seen or initiated into their own worth as men. The father shadow in daughters for a daughter. The father is the first man. He is her earliest encounter with the masculine, the original template for what men are, how they behave, whether they can be trusted, in what she must be in order to be loved by one. When the father is present, warm, about that age, he gives his daughter one of the most powerful gifts available in a human life, the felt knowledge that she is worthy of Amaya's loving attention simply by existing, not by performing, not by being small, simply by being herself. When the father is absent, critical, emotionally unavailable, or unsafe, the daughter carries the template directly into her romantic life. She may unconsciously choose partners who replicate the emotional distance of her absent father, drawn to unavailable men because unavailability feels like the natural texture of love. She may pursue the approval of critical partners with the same exhausting loyalty she once directed at a father whose standards could never be met. She may collapse her own needs and identity in relationships not because she is weak, but because she learned very early that being too much herself was the fastest way to lose the love of the most important man in her world. Or she may avoid intimate relationships altogether, keeping men at a distance, never allowing the vulnerability that might replicate the original wound. Pause music softens. None of these are conscious choices. They are loyal repetitions of the original script. And the most painful part is this: the very pattern that was designed to protect you from being hurt again is often the pattern that ensures you keep getting hurt. The father is the guardian of the spirit, and his wounds become the wounds of the spirit in his children. Before we go further, I want to pause it for a moment. In the last video on the mother shadow, many of you shared things in the comments that were deeply personal, patterns you had never named out loud before. I want to invite you to do the same. As you listen to this, if something is landing, if a pattern is becoming visible that you had not seen before, write it down in the comments. Each does not have to be long. Each does not have to be resolved. Just name what you are seeing, because naming each is the first act of making each conscious. In this community, you will not be alone in what you find. Narration continuing. The father shadow at work. One of the least discussed arenas where the father shadow operates is the workplace. Because the workplace, with its hierarchies, its authority figures, its systems of approval and punishment, its unspoken rules about who belongs and who does not, is a near-perfect replication of the original family system. And so the father shadow activates there with remarkable precision. The person who cannot receive feedback from a manager without it feeling like a personal annihilation, that is the critical father's voice, internalized. The person who cannot advocate for themselves, who waits indefinitely for recognition that never arrives, that is the child is still waiting for the absent father to finally notice. The person who sabotages promotions, who creates conflict just before a breakthrough, who makes themselves indispensable but never steps into leadership, that is the controlled child, is too afraid that becoming too powerful will bring punishment. The person who is loyal to a fault to institutions, leaders who do not deserve it, who stays long past the point of reason in organizations that diminish them, that is the child who learned that leaving means abandonment, abandonment means death. The father shadow in romantic love. This is where the patterns become most visible and most painful. Because in romantic love, we are not just the adults choosing each other. We are, beneath the surface, to psychological histories colliding, to father shadows, to mother shadows, to sets of unresolved patterns, seeking resolution through the person across the table. The daughter of an emotionally unavailable father who falls repeatedly for men who are charming in pursuit but distant in commitment. She is not choosing badly, she is following the map she was given. The son of a critical father who chooses partners who are perpetually disappointed in him, who seems to find, again and again, someone who confirms his deepest fear that he will never be enough. He is not self-destructing, he is following his map. The person who cannot tolerate a partner as a healthy independence, he reads each as rejection. They add is too inside the original scene where the father as a distance meant abandonment. The person who pushes away every partner who is genuinely available, who finds safety unbearable, stability suffocating. They add is too inside the home where love always had a cost. The approval loop. Perhaps the most universal manifestation of the father shadow is what we might call the approval loop. the relentless seeking of validation from authority figures, bosses, mentors, partners, audiences that no amount of external recognition ever seems to fully satisfy. Because the approval being sought is not actually the approval of the person in front of you, it is the approval of the Father who never gave it. And that Father is not in the room, He is inside you, and He will not be satisfied by any external substitute, no matter how many times you try. The only resolution available is internal. Where love rules, there is no auto power. And where power predominates, love is lacking. The one is the shadow of the other. We have named a great deal in this video, and I want to be honest with you. Naming these patterns can bring up a complicated mix of emotions. Grief for what you needed and didn't receive. Anger at someone who perhaps had no idea what they were doing to you. Guilt about seeing your father clearly as a wounded human being rather than the idealized or demonized figure you may have carried. All of that is appropriate. All of that is part of the process. And now we turn toward what Jung always insisted was the ultimate purpose of psychological work, not to understand the wound, but to integrate each, to make each conscious, to stop letting each run your life from the shadows. A step separate demand from the archetype. The first and most foundational step is learning to distinguish between your actual father, the human being with his own history, his own wounds, his own father shadow, and the father archetype that lives inside your psyche. Your real father was not the universe. He was not the final word on your worth. He was a person, doing what he knew how to do, limited by what he had received. The archetypal father, the internal judge, the withholding authority, the impossible standard that is a psychological construct. In psychological constructs, once magic conscious, can be worked with. This does not mean excusing harm. It does not mean pretending the wound wasn't real. It means refusing to let a flawed human being continue to hold the power of an archetype over your adult life. Step 2: grieve what you did not receive. This step is the one most people skip because it is the most painful. The grief of the father wound is not simple sadness. It is the grief of a need that was fundamental, that went and met during the exact developmental window when it mattered most. It is the grief of the child who waited and waited, he learned to stop waiting. That grief needs to be felt, not to be indulged indefinitely, but because unexpressed grief is one of the primary fuels of the compulsion to repeat. When you fully grieve what you did not receive, you stop needing the present to compensate for the past. You stop needing your partner to be your father. You stop needing your boss to validate what your father never did. You stop needing the approval loop to run. Step 3: reclaim your authority. One of the most significant consequences of an unresolved father shadow is a compromised sense of internal authority. When the outer father was absent, critical, or unsafe, the inner authority, the capacity to trust your own judgment, act from your own values, set a direction for your own life, often remains underdeveloped. You look outside yourself for permission. You seek approval before acting. You collapse your own knowing in the presence of someone who seems mighty certain. Reclaiming your authority means building, consciously and deliberately, the internal father you needed. The voice that says, I see you, I am proud of you, you are enough, you can handle this. You do not need permission to take up the space that is rightfully yours. This is not affirmation culture. This is the genuine psychological work of reparenting the part of yourself that never received adequate fathering. Step 4: interrupt the projection. When you notice yourself seeking approval from an authority figure with an intensity that feels disproportionate, pause. Ask, whose approval am I actually seeking right now? When you notice yourself choosing a partner or a dynamic that replicates the original one, pause. Ask, is this what I want, or is this what I recognize? The pause itself is the intervention. Not a solution, but a moment of consciousness inserted into an otherwise automatic process. In over time, those pauses accumulate into genuine freedom. Step 5: find living models. Jung believed that one of the most powerful corrective forces in a person's psychological life is the experience of a healthy version of what was missing. For those carrying a father shadow, this often means actively seeking out relationships with older men or authority figures who embody the positive father archetype. Mentors, teachers, therapists, community elders who can provide, at least in part, the experience of being truly seen, guided by a trustworthy, paternal presence. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. This psyche heals not only through insight but through experience. Through actually feeling a real relationship, a real time, what healthy authority feels like. In each time you experience it, the template inside you updates a little. The wound does not disappear, but each stop is being the only map you have. The most important question anyone can ask is, what myth am I living? A word on forgiveness. I want to address forgiveness directly, because each is often misunderstood in this context. Forgiveness in the Jungian sense is not absolution. Each is not saying what happened was acceptable. Each is not a performance of grace for the benefit of the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is the decision to stop carrying the wound as your primary identity. Each is the moment you say, this happened. Each shaped me. I am more than what each imagined me. Each does not require reconciliation with your actual father. Each does not require his participation at all. Each is entirely an internal act. Each is one of the most radical forms of self-liberation available. We have traveled a long distance today, from the patterns you could not explain, till the archetype that formed them, till the wound at their root, till the path that leads out to the other side. I want to leave you with something that I think is easy to miss in conversations about psychological wounds. The father shadow is not just about what your father failed to give you. It is also, and this is the part that takes Jimmy to see, about what he gave you that you have not yet claimed. His strength, even if each was expressed badly. His persistence, even if each became stubbornness. His high standards, even if they were weaponized. His love, even if each came in a language you could not understand. Part of integrating the father shadow is reclaiming the inheritance that was how separating what was genuinely given from the form in which it was given. In building, from both the wound and the gift, a relationship with authority internally external that finally belongs to you. What you can do right now: first, name the pattern. Which of the 5 father wound patterns resonated most? Write each though without judgment. Naming each is the beginning of seeing each as a pattern rather than as reality. Second, find the present day manifestation. Where is this pattern most active in your life right now? At your work? In love? In your relationship with your own authority voice? Third, practice the pause. The next time you feel an approval-seeking impulse that seems disproportionate to the situation, pause. Ask, whose approval am I actually after? That single question, asked honestly, is one of the most powerful psychological tools available to you. A final word: you did not choose your father. You did not choose the template he gave you or the wounds he left you the giving. But you are in this moment, choosing to look at each. In the choice, quiet, unglamorous, and profoundly courageous, is the beginning of writing a different story. Not a story in which the past did not happen, but a story in which the past no longer gets to write the future. Long pause music at its warmest, most resolved. If this video brought something to the surface, a pattern recognized, a memory surfaced, a grief finally named, I want to hear about each in the comments. How does the father shadow show up in your life? In your relationships, your work, your sense of your own authority? Your words create a space that matters. Is someone reading them will know they are not alone. If you are new to this channel, this video is part of a series. Video 84 explores how we project our unresolved material onto romantic partners. Video 85 goes into the golden shadow, the brilliant parts of yourself you have been afraid to claim. Together, these 3 videos form a map, and there is more to come. Subscribe if you want to continue this journey, and leave a like if this video was worth your time. It is genuinely how this work reaches the people who need it. In the next video, we are going to explore the other side of this coin. We have talked about the father, now we go to the mother. The mother shadow, how the first relationship of your life, the one with the woman who carried you, shaped your capacity for intimacy, your relationship with your own emotions, your sense of whether the world is fundamentally safe or fundamentally threatening. Jung called the mother archetype the most primal of all, the one closest to the deepest layers of the unconscious. In the wounds it carries are among the most invisible and the most consequential of any we will explore in the cities. Don't miss it.